One thing to elaborate on, Grover, is the Charvel Jackson, where it's separated, and I think that had to do with the Randy Rhoads thing. So that a little part of that story would be great.
Yeah, we had this brand name. We started making guitars and called them Charvel guitars, and they were essentially all bolt-on guitars. And then Randy appeared on the scene with this little line drawing that he had on a cocktail napkin of this weird V-shaped kind of thing. And the success of the company at that point was so tenuous. Really, really, we were living hand to mouth. And I was afraid that this weird shaped thing might have a negative impact on the little bit of success I was having with the bolt-on Charvels. So we decided collectively, Randy and I decided to make it a neck to the body guitar. And I said, well, I put the head on it. He had the body shape. And I said, how about we put a different name on this? I didn't say because I was afraid he might ruin my business. I just said, can we put a different name on it? And he said, sure, what do you think? And I go, I don't know, Jackson. And he said, sure, that's fine. You're making it, have your name on it, makes sense. And that's that original white guitar that's still in the Rhoads family is the original Jackson guitar.
So that's the first one you built.
That's it.
That's it. Name Jackson. Anything the first thing that had a Jackson name on it.
Right. The white guitar that Randy's very famous for having played.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you end up meeting Randy? How did that come about? No worries.
Randy was playing in this band, Quiet Riot.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get arrested. Could not get a record deal to save their life. And probably best left aside for why that was. But they just, it wasn't working. And Ozzy had gotten out of Black Sabbath and was in pretty rough shape. That's really well documented, I think, in Sharon's book and other books that Ozzy was in rough shape. And Sharon decided to try to repair his life and turn him into the Prince of Darkness. And they held auditions. And Randy, who was sort of in Quiet Riot and sort of not in Quiet Riot, auditioned, got the gig, and off they went to England to record the first, Ozzy record. And Randy came home after that record was recorded, but the record had not been released here in the States. It had been released in Europe and was doing sort of okay. But Randy came home to see his mom for Christmas, and he just called me up out of the blue. And it came out on the 23rd of December. I'd already turned everybody loose for the Christmas holiday. And so he came at about noon, and Randy and I sat for 12 hours and talked. We talked from noon to midnight. And the Rhoads guitar was basically, the original one was created that first day. The idea, the design, the elements of what that guitar was supposed to be. But then we talked about everything in the world, because as much as people like to ask questions about Randy, I never think of him as a guitar player. I always think of him as this guy that was just this really warm, sweet, decent person, and easiest guy in the world to like. And awesome. He played guitar. He happened to play guitar really great.
That's great. Were you involved in the Bumblebee at all? The black and yellow guitar, the Charvel that was made for Eddie?
I made that guitar. And in fact, Ed, that particular guitar, I made that guitar. I think some of the guys in the shop worked on it, but I put it together. I set that guitar up. Ed woke my wife at the time and I up at midnight and to inform us that the guitar had to be at Paramount Studios the next day for the photo shoot for the album. Which is the day that David apparently did some kind of a jump or something and broke his ankle. But yeah, the black and yellow guitar was 100% me. For me, being a little older, in the 60s, there was the big four, Clapton, Page, Beck, and Hendrix. And those guys kind of set the tone for what they changed guitar. They changed the guitar players. They made thousands and thousands of people want to play guitar. They influenced people's playing styles. And nobody, great guitar players between that era and Ed, but nobody until Ed made the impact that he did. He made an absolutely indelible impact, caused thousands of people to be interested in playing guitar, influenced thousands of guitar players. And I think to some degree, if you've lived with the guitar your whole life and it's been important, an object that you find always in your life, you owe Ed a tremendous debt of gratitude for that, because he really was the guy who broke the mold and was the guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody since then has done that. I mean, I was around that band a lot in that era when they were just emerging.
Mm-hmm.
There was this robust local scene, like I talked about a minute ago, and then there was Van Halen. I mean, there was these guys, these local guys writing local music, and they were good.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was Van Halen.
Yeah.
And it was night and day. They were, and I think I've said it somewhere before, viciously determined to be successful. There was not a question in their mind. It was just a matter of when are the pieces of the puzzle going to fall together.
Mm-hmm.
The determination that band exhibited in those days was just stunning to see.
Night regarding the Green Meanie with Steve Vai. So how did that come about? How did it become a Green Meanie?
Steve had been the guitar player with Frank Zappa, and was not known. He was in fact, Frank, I think, used to call him my little Italian guitar player. And Steve is an unbelievable transcriptionist, and that was one of his functions in the Zappa band, as I recall it, that he would transcribe parts. It was all written. That was the way Frank was. Frank was a genius. And he'd left Frank's band and joined up with an old friend of mine named Jimmy Waldo in Alcatraz. And Jimmy called and said, hey, you know, we got this. Yngwie had left. Yngwie was the original guitar player in Alcatraz, and he had left. And they got Steve as a replacement. And so Jimmy calls and says, hey, we've got this tour 2 weeks, and Steve's guitar won't stay in tune. We need to get a guitar. And I said, well, come on out. And they came out, and while they were on their way out to Ontario, I looked around and I had nothing I could sell them. Everything was sold. We got there and I said, guys, I got nothing. And, oh no, we've got to have a guitar. You can't keep this current guitar in tune. I said, okay, well, come on, let's get in the car. And we went to my house, and I had this red to yellow Sunburst Strat that I'd built for myself. And I said, okay, I'll loan you my guitar, and you can take that off to Japan and play it. And then when you get back, we'll make you a guitar. Okay, that's great. So off they go to Japan. They come back, and they're back a week, and I don't hear from Steve. And then another week goes by, and I still don't hear from Steve. We get to about the third week, and I'm going, yeah, well, I probably need to get something going for Steve, and heck, I'd like to have my guitar back. And so I called him up, and he says, yeah, you know, I really love that guitar. I said, yeah, it's a really good guitar. He says, yeah. I had Elwood paint it green. And I says, my guitar? My red Sunburst guitar? It's green? He goes, yeah, I really like that guitar. Said, yeah, no, it's a great guitar. He says, yeah, I like it. I said, okay, it's a gift. You can have it. And I gave it to him. And that's how my guitar ended up being green. And he played that guitar all the way up, I think, until, and a couple of other guitars I made for him, until he did the Ibanez thing. And he's had a wonderful, long, successful career with Ibanez, and God bless him. and I think he actually wore the Green Meanie out. I don't think it's actually even playable anymore because he just played the thing to death.
Now, was there anything particularly special about that guitar? That was it?
Actually, you know what? In a funny sort of way, I was watching some videos last night. There was something kind of special. It was a single piece ash body, and I remember that 2 guitars came out of that piece of wood. My guitar, which became Steve's guitar, and if you go back, there's a guitar player named Steve Ferris that
I know
played
Steve.
in the band. It came from Mr. Mister. Well, he actually, when I met Steve, he was playing with Eddie Money, and then later, that guitar that's in most of those Mr. Mister videos, sort of a caramel sunbursty kind of Charvel. That's the sister guitar to mine or Steve. Came out of the same piece of wood.